He's now made another video about Uru, and I'm interested to see what he's gonna say. So, we're gonna do that. We are gonna do that. Bro, I don't care about this advert. Get the fuck out of here! Alright, here we go. So this is Quazii once again. Real talk. You found the hardest part of Ultimate Raids. Now, he was progging Uru for a while. I don't know if he's, like, cleared. Or something like that. Wait, what has happened to my... Oh, I see. Right. Welcome to Chaos. I mean, I know people that have re-cleared a lot there. So I don't know, man. But anyway. Let's go.
Night number 10 in Ultimate Raids in Final Fantasy XIV. Yes, I've been spending 10 nights now doing Ultimate Weapon, the ultimate version of the fight. Or what the community affectionately dubs Uwu.
Looks like it's going well.
I just wanted to quickly pen my thoughts around how the 10 nights has been. This is a common question that I also get on my stream, which is how are you finding ultimate progression so far? And would you recommend it to people getting into Final Fantasy XIV, especially those who followed you from World of Warcraft? So, a full disclaimer here, when I eventually clear Ultimate Weapon as a fight, and we are pretty much close there, I'll talk about our progress in a bit, I won't have a full-blown video that kind of talks about coming from World of Warcraft to doing Ultimate Raids in Final Fantasy XIV. So I don't really want to get into the weeds of comparing both types of raids, World of Warcraft versus Final Fantasy in this video. And this video is really meant to be more of a vlog to kind of pen down my thoughts that answers, you know, what people have been asking about, you know, my sense around doing Ultimate Raids for 10 nights so far. So, firstly, where are we on the Ultimate Weapon fight? Well, we are currently progging Suppression. We've seen Suppression
nearly there.
In the very last stream.
The last obstacle. It's so free after that. So easy. He's playing with Arthur's. What's Arthur's name? Because I don't see it in the list, but maybe he is. Oh, Arth. Is it Arth?
Which was done on Monday. And yes, there's a bit of King's to
Annihilation
cool. That still needs to be worked out, but largely Annihilation has been more or less, I think, 75% figured out, and we really need to figure out Suppression next. And from what I understand, Primal Roulette is, you know, pretty much manageable later on.
Yes.
Another data point that you need in order to understand and comprehend the context in this video is to know that
that's really cool.
This very static that we are running, we have only one person that have cleared Ultimate, so essentially the 7 of us are really learning an Ultimate fight from scratch. So now on to my thoughts and, you know, my takeaways. Firstly, I have no idea at all how 10 raid nights have passed in Ultimate Weapon. This is roughly about 3 weeks in terms of calendar weeks now. And I must say the 3 weeks have flown by since I started playing Final Fantasy Ultimate Raids. And you know the saying goes, you know, time flies when you're having fun, and I think it's really true. What I really enjoy about the Ultimate Raid...
I will say, like, when I'm pugging Ultimates on stream, like, stream time goes by so much faster as well. Even though it's not always amazing fun and sometimes it's a bit fucking miserable, it's still content. And for some reason, Ultimates just make time pass so much faster than when I'm just doing Savage. It's insane, dude. Like, I've been live for 3.5 hours already, and like it feels like I've been alive for like 2. Because we spent a lot of that in Uru.
At least for Ultimate Weapon is, the fight is very fast-paced, right? And it's one of those things where if your brain just switches off for a split second, you quickly find yourself in trouble and probably dead on the floor, inspecting the floor. For a person like me who is very used to playing a tank in MMOs, one of the things that appeal to me is that you're living life on the edge. You know, the adrenaline is flowing. You know that if you basically make a mistake at any point in time, you're basically dead and you regret it horribly. And I'll talk about why you regret it horribly shortly.
I feel like you watched this already. No, I watched a previous video. He was talking about like the start of his experience and when he was like finding statics and stuff. This is a few weeks later.
But that part of the fast-paced mechanics is what really keeps me coming back for more. And obviously the Cat Gem soundtracks really gets your blood pumping.
I get bored of them after a while.
Really long day at work, and I come
Living Liquid is ruined for me.
Feeling pretty tired, and I can feel myself physically getting more alert once we start doing the pulls. As I immerse myself into the zone of, well, I better not screw up here, else I'm gonna die, and pretty much waste everyone's time in the fight. Now, speaking about that,
Uru is still very punishing in places, especially Ultimate.
In the fight. And some of you might go like, oh, here comes the potential negativity about Ultimate Raids. This is why I don't do Ultimate Raids. And here's my take on this thing, which is the wasting other people's time is a construct that
He's a streamer looking for static should be easy. That's not necessarily true. Some people don't want to be watched by a lot of people. And like as a streamer who doesn't have much experience, like that doesn't make it easy either. It's really not that. It's really not all that.
That I basically imposed on myself. And the rationale is as such, and it might not be something that everyone agrees with, but the way I think about it is the reason why ultimate raids are known to be a marathon and is meant to be challenging is because the entire fight itself is so long. It's like beyond 10 minutes. And just to give you a sense,
we're pretty
like
used to that now, right?
For cutting edges, the most difficult content in every tier is also north of roughly 10 minutes. So the reason why it's punishing to make mistakes, and in my opinion, resulting in a waste of people's time is that...
I mean, like, on that note, actually, I've killed Uru in like 13.5 minutes before. Like, literally quicker than it takes to kill Shiva sometimes. Last tier. Or Titan when it was relevant. Like, Uru's been really cut down. It used to be like a 16-minute fight-ish. 15:30 to 16:30 or so. But now it dies so quickly. Obviously, you know, they're probably not going to kill it that fast. You know, they might have a messy clear or something. But they are long, but they've been made shorter.
Normally what happens in a very long drawn out fight
like
that is that there are multiple phases, right? Similar to you know, ultimate weapon. There is, you do the 3 primals and then you do the ultimate weapon, and even with
people won't go through his logs. Yes, they will. The group I've joined, like, I had to trial like 5 times, and they went through my logs. I'm sorry, but it's just not true. Like, it's not true at all.
within the ultimate weapon,
a decent self-respecting group will still go through the same process.
So the issue is that you spend quite a lot of time progging the fight, and eventually you get really, really good at the initial phases.
Yes.
Like right now, we don't even have any problems at all generally in the first 3 phases, including Titan jails and whatnot, because we have done that so many times, we have failed so many times, we have learned from our mistakes so many times that those things go through very smoothly.
The problem is you lose
and
concentration.
The problem is, once in a while, right, someone just switches off, and that's including me as well. I've done that myself. I've basically got hit by landslide, got snapshot by landslides, and being unable to do the Titan jails and whatnot. Like, we have all been there, right? And the problem is that at that point in time, you have done everything right until that very split second where your focus just switches off for 1 second, and it's about, let's say, 9 minutes into the fight, and you make one mistake, and the entire raid has to wipe because you're unable to awaken Titan in this case because you failed your jails. And basically the party is waste 9 minutes of progging. The thing is, at that point in time, there's nothing much to be learned because everyone knows exactly what needs to happen. Everyone knows how one another screwed up. There's really nothing to be really taken away as a lesson from those wipes. And so that is where I think ultimate raids are the most challenging, because it's increasingly hard as you get deeper and deeper into the fight to be learning and progging efficiently. Meaning, there will be nights where the group just simply, you know, is more error prone, so they are spending a lot more time in the earlier phases where everyone already knows exactly how the fight works, but because of
the problem with that is that it gets tilting, right? Like, especially when you're far into the fight, if you're making mistakes early on, it gets more draining than focusing long enough to get back to that part of the fight that you're progging. And it gets really fucking annoying. Like, everyone has bad days, it happens. But, like, what he's saying is true. Like, with Uru especially, like, not concentrating for a few seconds at the wrong time, like, will still kill you. And Savage is a lot less like that, which is, I think, also kind of defines Uru as an ultimate still. So many people call it an extended Savage. I just don't agree. Like, it's so easy to kill people here still. Like, you've seen it. One person forgets to do one thing, and several people are dead. Like, it's... Or worse, it's a wipe. Like, it's just... Like, what he's describing now is literally what everyone goes through when they're progging. Especially more, like, casual statics that raid less often. Like, maybe it's not the same for, like, hardcore prog, because you're just constantly on a high, on a buzz, and you're still just punching through each fight. But when you just do several days a week, and you're just getting through it bit by bit, like, this happens a lot. And it's being able to deal with that that really matters when it comes to actually finally killing stuff.
mechanical errors, you know, you're unable to see the later parts of the fight where you really should be progging.
Yeah.
So for example, right now we are deep into suppression, and we should be learning suppression every single pull. But in reality, not every pull we actually get to suppression, because sometimes in the earlier parts of the fight, people make mistakes and we have to call a wipe. Simply because, let's say, we don't awaken a certain primal, well, then the fight is over at that point. And, you know, for us, like, we have a 3-hour setup on each raid night. We raid 9 hours a week, which is basically 3 nights. And you can imagine
it's the minimum I recommend.
The 3 hours for every night, not the full 3 hours, is productive learning. That's what I meant by it's important not to switch off and make mistakes, because in my opinion, that results in me wasting 7 other people's time, because they don't learn anything from my mistakes. And arguably, I don't even learn anything from my mistakes, because, well, the lesson is really, well, stop being careless and stop switching off and stay focused. That really is the lesson. And I've been down this path in World of Warcraft, where, you know, endgame bosses are just really a marathon, because it requires you to put in, you know, a certain amount of time over, you know, an extended period of days and even weeks. And so when I first started Ultimates, I know there are a lot of people who told me that, hey, you must be prepared for a marathon of a prog. And I kind of understood what they meant from my World of Warcraft days. But now that I'm on the 10th night of Ultimate Weapon, I finally understand, in terms of Final Fantasy, what that really means.
It is strange.
Are fast-paced. There will be times you make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, basically you don't get anything out of those X number of minutes that you put into that very pool before making that careless mistake. So arguably, you would say that, you know, my gut feel is that on a good night, maybe 50 to 70% of the time we're doing something productive in terms of learning the fight,
this is funny to me. Like, people look at Final Fantasy and they go, oh, just an 8-man raid, 1 fight, can't be that fucking hard, right? And then, like, you actually play the game and you raid and you actually realize, like, how intense it is and, like, how long it can actually take to prog these things, especially as a newer player. Like, this doesn't apply to veterans so much. Like, the veteran, you know, top-of-the-mill raiders. But to your average person playing this game, getting into raiding, like, it is weird how you end up spending so much time on what is essentially 1 fight. Especially Ultimate, because it's essentially like a gauntlet of bosses, right? So, you know, each phase is very different. So, I think that probably plays into it. And just the way this game is designed to be kind of, you know, pass and fail checks and stuff. It can take a lot longer than anyone gives it credit for. Which is... It is strange. Whereas, like, you know, big raid instances in WoW of like 11 bosses, yeah, they'll take people ages too. But, you know, the sense of progression is there a bit more, because you're firing through like up to, you know, 11, 12 bosses. And so your prog is defined like by the bosses and not like the bosses you've killed, and not how far you are into a fight. Which is mostly the case here with Ultimates, at least. So it's a very different dynamic.
Parts of the fight that we actually are progging on, but on certain nights it's probably more like 50% of the pulls we are actually learning something, because we managed to get to that obstacle in the fight where we actually need to learn by making mistakes, that all 8 of us are actually learning by making mistakes. And sometimes it's just hard to keep your focus, because, well, the reality of it is none of us are professional raiders. We all have a day job, and quite frankly, I think, you know, most of us, pretty much as working adults, you don't get enough sleep when you're playing MMORPGs. So you tend to come in, you're tired from work, and sometimes you just switch off because you just didn't sleep well and you don't have enough caffeine
fucking
in your
cat
system,
girls, man, they keep me
you're
up.
not feeling yourself. And so this also nicely brings me to the next part of this video, where I kind of want to talk about what that implies for the rest of, you know, your static. I am also starting to understand why I've been hearing so much things about static burnouts, static disbands in my community, in my Discord, where people, you know, they comment on the fact that they have done T for many weeks, they've gotten to this part of the fight, and it just really sucks that someone leaves the static, someone doesn't want to raid anymore. And now that I've done 10 nights of this thing, I fully understand why that is something that is so crushing. I can imagine if somebody in my static says, hey guys, I'm done, I just don't want to do suppression anymore, I just hate this part of the fight, I can't take it anymore, I'm not enjoying myself, and I want to, you know, drop out from the static. What happens is that you potentially need to go and find a replacement. And let's say the replacement for that particular role is someone who has not done suppression, he has only done the fight all the way up to
it is
my case,
annoying,
my turn, right?
like mechanics here, like in Ultimates especially, are such big set pieces that it can take a while for like to really learn. So even if you recruit someone who's only like a mechanic or two behind, it can still take a while to catch them up. And finding people at that point of prog is then another problem on top of that. It's not a simple case of just finding someone, like, especially, like, I would imagine they're maybe aiming to, like, not find people that have cleared either. I mean, like, he's not said he's needed to replace somebody, but, you know, say you don't want to just find someone who's cleared, like, that's even worse. So, like, that's, you know, this is how it goes, really. Like, things are so just kind of like 0 or 1, and whether you pass the mechanic or not, at least for some of them, that things can just end up being a brick wall if you have to replace somebody and then get back to that point again, and then, you know, maybe someone else leaves for a different reason. Gets fucking miserable. I've had friends, like, I have one friend, like, he's killed all 3 now, like, a billion times, like, thank God. But he went through group after group of just people that just couldn't do it, or just couldn't stick it out, and I felt so fucking bad for him. Like, he was just trying his hardest, and just every group just had weak links that were just a problem, and then they'd be, like, really fucking unreliable, and then... Ultimates are an experience, man. I also had that of T. Yeah, same kind of.
What that means is that the rest of the 7 people needs to relearn. Well, not really relearn, but they need to accompany this
Took me a month to find a group too.
Relearn the fight, make sure he understands how to get to that very obstacle they are on, which is in this case suppression, the example that I'm giving. So they basically have to commit time to basically get a new guy up to speed. And chances are, you know, this experience might not be the best because they're not learning anything from those wipes when, you know, the new guy is making mistakes and learning how to do the fight. And from there, within the 7 people, there might be other folks that are disgruntled because, well, they feel like this is not fun for me. I'm not learning anything. I'm just, you know, kind of spending my time accompanying this guy to make mistakes. And then you can see how it snowballs because amongst the 7, some people might say, you know, guys, I'm done with this reprogging thing. We have seen this so many times. I just feel like it's not a productive use of my time. Again, this goes back to the fact that, you know, we all have, you know, a real life schedule unless you're a full-time gamer or full-time streamer. So in terms of your time is really precious for you in terms of, you know, what you want to do in the game. Or
I think like that is kind of a valid point. Like at the end of the day, PFing is good for that because you can do things on your own terms. Which is very true. You know, I like having schedules and a static and stuff. You know, I like knowing when I'm gonna raid. But, like, for that one reason, PF, as Mephisto's just said, it actually has its perks. Which is strange, because PF is known for being the fucking Wild West. Where nothing good ever happens. But at least people get to do things when they want to, and not when they have to. Which can be a bit more relaxing in a weird way. I like knowing who I'm gonna raid with. That's fair. Like, especially if you enjoy playing with those people, it's nice to have that few hours where you're gonna feel good and have a good time.
Away from Final Fantasy XIV, and that is
I use PF to improve, but I'd never prog in it.
Snowballs. If one guy leaves, if you can't quickly get the static back on track to where you were when you know, you were 8-man cell and learning the fight properly, then it can very quickly snowball into a disaster. So the tip, the TLDR here that I realized honestly is, amongst the 8 people, there must be chemistry. There must be something that is holding the group together. More
raiding with friends is always the best bet.
It can be the banter you have. It can be just the fact that there's a core group of real life friends playing together. It can be the fact that these are people that have played together for a long time, so you know that no matter what, through thick and thin, even in good times, bad times, like, you know that people won't quit. They'll still show up on time and they will still continue to invest time into this game. And I'm starting to come to the realization that I think the hardest part of progging Ultimates is actually not the fight itself. It's actually the roster. The static roster is the hardest part of doing Ultimate fights because, quite frankly, the mechanics aren't so mind-boggling difficult that it requires you to have X amount of expertise or skills to actually do it. It's actually, if you break it down into very simple steps, everyone can comprehend the mechanics in the Ultimate fight. But it
This is so fucking true. Like, it doesn't matter how hard a mechanic looks. Like, when I'll say the Heaven's Fall thing again. Like, when I got to Heaven's Fall for the first time in UCOB, I was like, how the fuck do we have 8 people get thrown different ways every pull into these towers? How? Like, a couple mechanics in this game I just could not wrap my head around, like, difficulty-wise. But he's right, like, you can break down every mechanic and learn every mechanic. The hardest part is having 8 people doing that mechanic. You know? Because the hardest mechanics require 8 people to pass them. So, like, this is just 100% true.
Really being able to find that group of people that is willing to support you when you're having a shitty day in raid and not performing per your normal standards, to being able to accommodate all these wipes that nobody learns anything, and having the mental fortitude to show up night after night to make sure that as a static you eventually get to the finishing line. So with that said, where does that leave me in terms of ultimate fight? So I think now that we are at suppression, we are quite close to the end of the fight. I would say that I would definitely want to do more ultimate fights. I definitely want to see more, because I really think that the choreography of the fights are better in ultimates, because obviously there's more phases, right? So there's more visual transitions and musical transitions, and that's something that I've always appreciated about Final Fantasy XIV versus, let's say, the normal version of the fights. But something I've also realized is that, well, you should really take your time when it comes to ultimate prog. Do not rush progression for the sake of saying that, oh, I want to clear this ASAP and flex on people in terms of showing my achievement and my title, my weapons. Because guess what? If you do 2 days a week or you do 4 days a week, it really doesn't matter as long as you can eventually get to the finishing line. If you push your static too hard to raid too many days a week and it results in burnout and people being unhappy and this thing being entirely unsustainable, guess what? You just failed the hardest check of ultimate raids, which is the roster boss. And in fact, I do recall there are certain times where our static actually said, let's take an off day today because we have been making back-to-back raids, or we have been making too many makeup raids that we should kind of chill a little. And I'm 1000% behind that, because I'm now starting to understand that this is really, really, truly a marathon. It's not about winning in the short term. It's not about how fast you win. It's about making sure that everyone gets across the finishing line together as a team in the long run. Now, of course, if you're trying to race for world first, it's a completely different problem, which I will not talk about this video because, that's not what I'm trying to do. One last thing I'll mention about this video is that when I finish Ultimate Weapon in terms of a fight, I would definitely upload, my own version of how the fight went and how we broke it down. Because I realized that I was obviously the beneficiary of people who have cleared the fight, many years ago. And they have put up guides ever since then. And it does seem that the community does gravitate to certain guides that have been absolutely essential in helping us learn the fight. But I've also realized there's a separate body of wisdom.
Let's not get into the guides conversation, because my god, that gets volatile. That gets interesting.
That comes from more of the veterans who have done this fight before. And these are usually like the so-called like brain dead methods that they have kind of developed themselves that has helped their own static in progressing the fight, which is not really encapsulated in a lot of the guides that came from the earlier days when the fight was first released. And so when I eventually released the video for Ultimate Weapon, when we clear the fight, I intend to present it from the perspective of a Sprout who's entirely new to Final Fantasy XIV and is meant to be quick and dirty, and it's all these like little hacks that I've realized from people, like, oh, if you see this X visual indicator or this person being positioned here, it's actually a guaranteed safe spot here and whatnot. Like all these little things that I picked up along the way. I do.
This is also true. Like there's always a lot to learn about mechanics. Like even when you've got a mechanic down, there's always little things you can learn about it. Especially if they have like a lot of moving parts. So like Annihilation and Suppression are probably pretty good examples, especially Suppression. And I think like deepening your understanding of mechanics is pretty important. Not just kind of for you to help you do them in other ways, but also to help people get through them as well. Like it's not just like, say you have people in your group who have cleared an ultimate and you're now progging it. And like you have like 1 or 2 people that have cleared in your group. guides, POVs, and learning the fight is one thing, but having like someone who can give you some wisdom and tell you like these little things that you can or can't do is so fucking helpful as well. Like, it really kind of helps you deepen your understanding and be able to perform a mechanic kind of better, or just work out better what went wrong, I guess, as well. There's a visual cue show which Alex clone doesn't do Sacrament. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like, things have animations in this game. This game is very animation heavy. When something's gonna do something, you know, you can usually see that it's gonna do something. That's why, like, visual cues with mechanics are pretty good. But that's a good example, yeah.
In the video and basically publish it on the channel eventually.
Hello, Banan.
Because I'm sure that, you know, many years down the road, there are still people who are still looking to Ultimate Weapon to get that shiny weapon of theirs. Because, hey, let's face it, Glamour is the true endgame.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways
to
do
those
one
are my
thing,
thoughts
yeah.
after 10 days of being in an Ultimate Raid. It's been a real blast, and I'm looking forward to getting to the finishing line. To everyone who has constantly came into my Twitch channel to kind of show their support and give me their well wishes, I truly 100% really appreciate you.
I would, but I'm asleep when you raid or streaming myself.
Those supportive comments in the section below as well. A big shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thanks for making this channel possible, and a big thank you to you for watching the videos. If you like the video, do hit the like and subscribe button. It will help me immensely as a content creator. And until the next video, take care. I'll see you soon.
See ya, bro. Good video though. Like, yeah, as mentioned, you know, this video is just a big fat true. He says a lot of things that really kind of encapsulate the ultimate experience, whether you're progging or trying to find a group to prog with. Like the video. I will like the video. There you go, chat. You should all subscribe to this guy, by the way. Like, he's been playing for a little bit. He's gotten into raiding now. He's raiding with Arthur's as well. So, like, go give him some love. And watch his stuff. Very cool. Alright. Moving on.